Hello.
Hi, is this Rick?
Yeah.
Well, hi, Rick. We want to welcome our first guest for the evening, Mr. Rick Goldschmidt, who literally wrote the book, if you will, on Rankin Bass, the author of The Enchanted World of Rankin Bass. Welcome to the show. You're on the air live with Terry and Tiffany Defoe.
Thanks.
See, we're making a mistake of trying to do video tonight, and this is why we do radio, because video's evil, you know? But we're trying to do both. But welcome to the show.
Thanks. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you, too.
So where are you from? I know you just recently on WLS in Chicago.
Yeah, I'm in the Chicago area. I'm in Oak Lawn, Illinois. It's just south of Chicago. And we got hit with a lot of snow tonight.
I heard that. I mean, you would expect that somebody that loves Rankin Bass so much to be hit with a major blizzard. I mean, Rankin Bass would love this, wouldn't they?
Yep.
Actually, we're from the area. We're from Rockford, Illinois. You know where that is?
Yeah. Cheap Tricks from Rockford. So I know that area well.
It's one of our only claims to fame. So tell us, how did you first become interested in Rankin Bass?
Well, I always watched the shows growing up. You know, they were a big part of our family holidays. And after I got out of school, my degree was in illustration, and I did a lot of art that was similar to the work of Jack Davis and Paul Coker.
Right.
And I started talking to them on the phone, and they became major commercial illustrators, but they started out in the pages of Mad Magazine and did a lot of comic art related things in their early days. And then they got involved with Rankin Bass and designed all of their shows, and I was always wondering whatever happened to them, and you never really read much about them, you know. They just stopped doing specials at some point, like the mid-'80s, and that was it, and they kept running them year after year, so I was just interested into, you know, what happened to them. So I decided to do a book and got a hold of Arthur Rankin, and he didn't believe me because so many people said they were going to do a book before I did it. And then I sent him a few chapters, and then that's where it started.
Well, it was good it started in Illinois, because I'm proud to say, being from Illinois, it seems that that state has a lot of fan following of stuff like this, and they're into cult movies and the whole thing, drive-in and all that. I guess it's because that's what we were raised on, is that kind of stuff. As far as your age, I mean, are you someone, I don't know if you want to tell your age on radio, are you someone that kind of grew up watching them when they were new, or did you catch them in the repeats?
I caught them during, like, the 1970s. And they were still doing quality specials at that time, like Santa Claus Is Comin to Town and The Year Without a Santa Claus, and, you know, all of those. So, you know, they had a special part. They've always been a big part of my childhood. Right. And you know, the thing about it is the quality that went into them and the heart and warmth is almost non-existent today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, true.
And that's why people love those shows still, and I get tons of emails every year, and there's all kinds of merchandise, and, you know, it's a busy time of year for me because people still want quality stuff like that, and it doesn't exist in today's entertainment world.
No,
I mean, it does, but it's few and far between.
Absolutely. Now, of the two geniuses, I'll call them Rankin and Bass. Now, Mr. Rankin's still with us, right?
Jules?
Which one is alive and which was not? Let me get this straight there, because there was
well,
one.
both of them are living.
Fantastic. Okay.
They have places in New York, and Arthur lives in Bermuda most of the time. And Jules used to live in France, but now he lives solely in New York. And they still see each other. They still hang out together. In fact, they have homes that are very close to each other. And they still are working on a few projects. Nothing like what they did, during the time they did all the holiday specials, but they're still interested in creative things.
Now, a lot of people don't realize, because they focus on, of course, the holiday specials that Rankin Bass is known for, but they actually did a lot of different non-holiday stuff as well, all using the technique of basically what was called animagic. Can you kind of explain to us what is that? What makes it different than anything else?
Well, the animagic, I think, is the most special thing that they did, and it was stop motion that was done in Japan. And the puppets were made of all different kinds of materials. They weren't clay or claymation. They were, these intricate puppets like the kind you see in the Tim Burton films. Except they didn't use computers back then.
Right.
They animated everything one frame at a time, and it was a difficult process without that assistance, but the Japanese were super talented at doing stop motion. And what I think Rankin Bass did more so than any other studio that ever did stop motion is bring personality to puppets.
Right.
You don't think of them as puppets so much as you think of them as characters, like Hermie and the Heat Miser and Snow Miser. They just have these personalities that live on forever in your mind, and they were actually puppets. So I think that was their biggest success. And then they also did regular cell animation too, like with Frosty, and they did The Hobbit, which was a really popular show of theirs, and they did even the Jackson 5 and the Osmond Show.
Really?
Which is also very popular. Yeah, they did so many different things that they really branched out and were more creative than any other animation studio as far as tackling live action, and then they combined live action with animation, and they did all different kinds of projects. It wasn't just one style or one type of thing that they did, but the thing that they'll always be known for is the puppet, the animagic stuff.
What I'd be interested in knowing, especially since, I hear the great news, I'd known that one of them was alive, but to hear that both of them are alive is fantastic. I want to know what they think about how some of their characters, especially from the Rudolph one, is being used today. Like, for instance, there's currently a TV commercial on that Verizon is kind of like knocking down AT&T, and it's on the Island of Misfit Toys. What do they think about stuff like that?
Well, that I'm sure they thought was funny. They don't like the extreme parodies like the Mad TV things that happened way back when, and they've done other things like that on various shows that I'm sure they don't think is funny. But I'm sure they probably appreciate anything that's done on a higher quality, like the Verizon commercial. And I think they did an Aflac commercial this year too, but I never saw that one.
Yeah.
But they don't actually own the shows anymore because General Electric owned the company that they produce the shows for, and then General Electric sold their entertainment division, and it went through several hands since then. And right now, a lot of them are in the wrong hands because they don't care about restoring them or adding any extra special content to the DVDs. They just care about the money that they make off of them with the Verizon commercial or something like that.
Do you know if excuse me? Do you know if they get, like, do they still get royalties from the show, or perhaps, you know, something from the merchandising, or are they cut out of that now?
Well, they got a lot of money when the show's sold. They're living very well, but some shows they still get royalties from. It depends on which production. Like, I know Mad Monster Party, which is owned by Studio Canal.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood has this crazy idea to make a live-action movie out of it.
Really?
And it's been written up in Variety a few times where analyze this, the writers of that movie, the one with Robert De Niro. I never saw that movie, but they're writing up some kind of script, and it's going to be produced by Warner Brothers or something like that, which I think is just dumb.
It's dumb. At least we can hope they get Phyllis Diller. She's still with us, you know?
Yeah, she sent me a Christmas card this year, but she's not doing that well.
Oh, unfortunately.
She's been ill for the last 4 or 5 years, and she can't do her comedy anymore, and she's pretty much at home now.
Well, in talking about how Mr. Rankin and Mr. Bass aren't really sometimes given the respect they have due to them, I don't imagine you want to, like, talk shit, as we say, because we're uncensored here. We can say the word shit. But Warner Brothers owes them some money. Is that right?
Yeah, from Thundercats. There was some kind of accounting that they were doing wrong, and Arthur and his lawyers figured out, you know, what they owe him and the rest of the Rankin Bass staff, and they're hiding behind the statute of limitations to not pay him. But I know there's a feature film in the works on that, you know, because of some of the other ridiculous movies that have come out in the past 5 years. So once that comes out, I think attention will be drawn to the fact that they owe the original producer money, and hopefully they'll settle up with them. But it's a shame. Yeah, Warner Brothers is the other big company that owns a lot of their later shows, and they don't handle them properly at all. Like, they're going to put out a deluxe version of the first Easter Rabbit, which is a lesser-known special, but how can you put a deluxe edition out with no documentary and no extra stuff on it?
Now,
and what they'll do is they'll just throw some other Easter cartoon that they had that they own on there.
Well, that brings up a good question, Rick. I mean, because you're essentially kind of a historian, know the whole timeline of Rankin Bass, and you wrote the book and everything, have you ever considered actually filming and producing a documentary to actually do them justice?
I think you'd be the one.
Well, we did do 2 documentaries so far. One's on the Mad Monster Party DVD that came out this past year, which was really well done. That was done by Spark Hill. And then we did another one with Spark Hill for Warner Brothers on the Year Without Santa Claus DVD. And that one was good, but they took out all the behind-the-scenes photos that I had because they were afraid of lawsuits. And then they didn't even use the Rankin Bass music. They just put in some generic music. They're afraid of, you know, all the repercussions that could happen, but probably never will.
Yeah, I got like a DVD set, or I think it was a DVD set or a CD set, but it was supposed to be the Rankin Bass music, and it was some god-awful studio singers. It was terrible.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that was from Classic Media. They stuck on some CD with, it was really bad. It sounded like Broadway versions of some of the Rankin Bass songs.
And you know, it all starts with Rankin Bass, but they had a lot of help, and they had a great team, and part of the success of what they did was because of the great songs. Now, who wrote their songs?
Maury Laws and Jules Bass wrote most of them, and they're both still around. And we wanted to get a Maury Laws contacted me about 4 years ago, and there was talk of taking all of their Christmas songs and doing a touring, orchestrated event, and all the orchestra halls were interested in it and were ready to purchase it, but for some reason the producers ran into some trouble and it never got done. And I hate when things like that happen because, these guys are not going to be around forever.
Right.
And they should have made a Rudolph documentary already. And, everyone's still around, but just barely.
Now, Rankin and Bass, what are their ages now? What are their ages now for Rankin and Bass?
Well, Arthur, I think, is in his early 80s, and Jules is in his early 70s.
God bless him.
But Billy Mae Richards, who did the voice of Rudolph, she could still do the voice, and we did radio interviews together, but then she had a stroke a couple years ago, and, she's not going to be around forever, and it would be great to get Rudolph in an interview on a documentary for Rudolph.
And,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I never realized, just like when I found out that Lassie was really a boy, that Rudolph was voiced by a woman.
Yeah, and she did a lot of other boy voices for Rankin Bass, and the reason she got the job in the first place was she did a lot of radio, and radio lasted longer in Canada than it did in the U.S., and she did a lot of different boy characters, like Huck Finn and all these different radio sagas, so she always did little boy voices, and she was the perfect match for Rudolph.
Now, what was the decision, or I don't know if you know, or if there was ever any discussion as to why Rankin Bass decided to get into regular animation? Because a lot of fans have said that they were so good at doing kind of the animagic, kind of puppet tune kind of a thing. Why did they go into regular animation? A lot of fans have said that they felt that it was almost kind of like a sellout to do that. Do you agree, disagree, and do you know why they decided to go that route?
Well, they just did it for a different look. They wanted to get the Paul Coker style into some of their shows, and Paul Coker has a very distinctive line art style. It's like done with a India ink pen. It has like a broken line style to it. And they captured that in Frosty. That was one of the first projects that they did that. And Arthur said he does an introduction on the early version of the DVD for Frosty, and he said he wanted that Christmas card look, which Paul Coker, not only was he doing art for Mad Magazine, but he was also a Hallmark card illustrator for years, and he had this very distinctive style where you could pick out his art in greeting cards like almost immediately, and they just captured that style in the cell animation, and it made it unique because it didn't look like Disney art, and it didn't look like any other kind of art. It looked like Rankin Bass, the Paul Coker style. Everything that they did in cell animation pretty much looks like Paul Coker's art, and that's what I like about it.
Now, their actual characters, we've got a really good description here. It says that they have spheroid body parts and ubiquitous powdery snow. How would you describe the way theirs looked different from, let's say, something that Art Clokey would do?
Well, their stop-motion stuff was uniquely designed, In the early days, it was done by Tony Peters, and he had a UPA style to him, which was really simple. their puppets had, just dot eyes and big noses and weird-shaped heads. They were very simple puppets. And then later on, the shows, even the stop-motion specials were designed by Paul Coker, so they had more of a different look to them, a little bit more intricate puppet work. And their animation actually got better as the years went on, but I liked the early stuff the best because it had that simple, that UPA look to it. And that's what attracted me to Rankin Bass was, their distinct look and how simple it was. And I don't think anybody did Santa Claus better than they did, or their, Rudolph better than they did in the first version. So they took all these classic holiday characters and really gave them a definitive look, in my opinion.
Did they ever tell you that they liked other animators' work, such as George Powell or such as Clokey or some of those that did similar things?
No, they weren't really inspired by any of those people, from what I've gathered. But Arthur Rankin thinks the best animated film ever made was Disney's Pinocchio.
I agree.
And he liked the artist that they used to base the look off of. I guess he was a German artist, and he really loved the look of that film, and that's why they did The New Adventures of Pinocchio as one of their first projects, and they did that in stop motion, and I love that look too because it's the most rough Rankin Bass looking Animagic show,
right?
And then you could see how they kind of defined it a little better with Rudolph and as time went on. But I like the early stuff better than I like the later stuff.
Well, I don't know who wound up with the rights. I know that Rudolph was originally a story that was written by a Montgomery Ward's employee, and of course Disney did Pinocchio. Did they have problems getting the rights to do these at all?
No, not at all. And the way that Rudolph happened was Johnny Marks, who was the brother-in-law to the guy who wrote the Montgomery Ward book, Robert L. May. Johnny Marks lived by Arthur Rankin, so they saw each other socially, and he said, why don't we do this as an animated show? And he didn't want to do it because the song generated a lot of revenue for him, and he thought that would be overkill or overexposure for the song. But it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to the song, the character, and Johnny Marks wrote all the songs for the special, and Holly Jolly Christmas became a big hit too. So it just expanded his revenue.
Well, they were really lucky too. I mean, Rankin Bass. I mean, before it became kind of trendy to do it, they got big stars to do their voices. I mean, my God, Andrew Griffith, Burl Ives, Fred Astaire, Red Skelton, Danny Kaye, Boris Karloff, Jimmy Durante, Danny Thomas, Ethel Merman, Vincent Price, Bob McFadden, and it just goes on and on. Mickey Rooney, of course, and many more that I did not say. I mean, what was it like them? What was it like for them to get these people? Was it hard? And is there any stories that they might have told you about working with these kind of people?
Well, it was easy to get them because most of them were at the end of their careers. But the thing about it is today they get stars just to attract an audience, whether their voice is good or not. They put celebrities in every animated thing.
Right.
But back then, these stars had a very distinctive personality, a very distinctive voice, like Burl Ives and Danny Kaye and all these guys. And I think Rankin Bass didn't use it so much as a gimmick, but to get a really good personality into these shows to make them last, forever. And the way they got them into it was, it was something that they could show their grandchildren, and a whole different generation of people would know them for these shows. And a lot of them loved the shows and would watch them every year with their kids and their grandchildren and their grandchildren. You know, I remember Art Carney, when I sent him my books, he was real ecstatic about them and remembered the show very fondly and said he did show it to his grandchildren. And, you know, it's one of those things that they're happy that they were involved with. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it really, I think a lot of people know Burl Ives and Fred Astaire from these shows.
I think definitely, and you know, it's kind of crazy the way Hollywood works, because these guys were established big, you know, theatrical stars. I mean, of course, Fred, the greatest dancer in the world, and Burl Ives, he had that acting thing going on and a musical career for a long time. But it kind of like brought them into the vision of youth, which were the baby boomers back then, and now through the modern generation with the reruns. But it caused kids to know who they are.
Right.
Just out
Jimmy Durante.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, because one of the fun things for people that know these celebrities that were in the that did their voices to the shows, such as Fred Astaire and Burl Ives, is that their characters in the films always look like them a little bit. Knowing that
did,
knowing that the animagic, if you will, was done in Japan, how did they handle that transition? Was there stills sent to them? Did Rankin Bass do a sketch of what they wanted them to look like? How did it translate?
Well, they were all done in storyboard, so the animators could see, you know, what each character would have to look like and what they were doing. But in the character design itself, most of the time that was done by Paul Coker. He would capture, you know, the essence of the characters. In fact, he's done a lot of cartoons for me of Arthur Rankin and Jules Bass, and as simple as he caricaturizes them, they look just like them, you know. And he's done that with myself and some other people. So he captures the essence of the character in his art, but he does it in the simplest way,
right?
So that the animators can go from there. And usually, they were very successful at capturing, you know, personality, and that's one of the things I think makes them last so long. But also the writer who wrote most of them, who's no longer with us, Romeo Muller, he had a way of writing that people today still don't understand, where he would reform the villains and bring a lot of heart and warmth into the story. You know, I saw a little bit of a Disney, they said it was Disney's first Christmas special, and it was called Prep and Landing. And about 10 minutes into it, I had to turn it off because it had no heart, no warmth, no anything to even hold your attention for longer than 5 or 10 minutes.
That describes Rankin Bass too. It had heart. I mean, they just don't have that anymore.
You don't. That's what's missing from a lot of things. Now, Pixar understands what Rankin Bass did, and they do it time and time again with their feature films. You know, they always write things that have meaning, that are lasting, that'll win an Academy Award. But everyone else, all the other animation studios, they go for the cheap laugh, you know, and the questionable humor. And that's not what Rankin Bass did at all. And, you know, anything that lasts, like A Charlie Brown Christmas and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, it lasts for a reason, and it has to, you know, you have to want to watch it again and again. And without heart and warmth, that isn't going to happen.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't know if I want to know, but we need to know, and I probably think you're going to say they didn't, but we'll find out. People like Dr. Seuss that wrote The Grinch That Stole Christmas, known for his great family stuff, but he actually wrote an adult book, and a lot of people don't know that. Okay, Sid and Marty Krofft produced an adult play that had puppets in it and that were nude, and Mae West actually did the voice for one of the puppets. Did they do anything that was controversial?
No, not that I can think of. But like I said, they did branch out into a lot of different divisions. Mm-hmm. Arthur Rankin did feature films, and some of them were made for TV movies, like the ABC Friday Night Movie or whatever it was back in the 70s. And he did one called the Bushido Blade, which is like a samurai movie. And another one of their movies that a lot of fans love is called the Bermuda Depths. And those are more adult fight movies, but they have a cult following to them. But they didn't really do anything controversial, you know.
Well, you know, there was a lot of stuff they did that I didn't see. Like one that was mentioned was like something they did with Smokey the Bear, which is one of my favorite characters. Was there many things that they didn't get on, or maybe not as known as Rudolph? Or
well, a lot of them kind of fell by the wayside because, you know, for whatever reason, like the Ballad of Smokey the Bear is a great special, but Johnny Marks wrote all the songs for that too, and it came out like 2 years later, and they might have rushed it, you know, and the songs weren't as great as like Rudolph, and it didn't have a purpose. It wasn't something you could air every year, you know, as for the holidays. So
was that stop motion or was that animation?
Yeah, that's a stop motion that James Cagney was the narrator.
Wow.
And I like it a lot. I love the way it looks, and I love the animation, but
I gotta see
it's not one of those ones that would air every year, you know.
And they did another one that you know, I would have hoped would have been popular, but obviously either never made it to air or wasn't popular. You can fill us in on that. On my favorite person, Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. What was the situation with that?
Yeah, that they did in, I'm not quite sure exactly what year it was done, but from the pictures that I have, I place it in the mid-'60s, and it was after Rudolph.
Right.
So it might have been like 65, 66, somewhere in there. And Arthur remembers it differently, and I think his memory is wrong because he thought that Edgar Bergen died after they finished it, but he didn't die for years after. Right. You know, he was even in one of the Muppet movies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what happened was they did a pilot, and the network it didn't sell, you know. And I don't know where that film is now either. I think it's with the Bergen estate, but I haven't been able to locate it. I would love to see that too because
Absolutely.
The puppets looked perfect, and it was done during the time period that I loved the best for Rankin Bass. So hopefully one day it'll show up.
There was a special too. It probably wasn't them, but there was some kind of a stop motion animation, or maybe it was claymation of the Little Rascals.
Yeah, I know the Little Rascals. There was a cell animated Christmas special that Romeo Muller wrote, who used to be the Rankin Bass writer, but he switched over to a more independent writing at that time.
And then there was a claymation one too. This is a separate thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure who did that, but I love the Little Rascals too. So.
Absolutely. Well, you're from Illinois, you have to.
Right.
But the last thing they did now, I take this to be the last thing, was in 2001 as far as a Christmas special, and it was Santa Baby.
With Eartha Kitt.
Yeah, that wasn't very good. Paul Coker designed it, but it looked like it went through a lot of changes and a lot of politics before it actually got on the air. And it wasn't very good, you know. really the last thing they did in stop motion was The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a big fan of that special. It was done in '85.
Well, that's interesting because it's actually based off the Frank Baum book, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of fans of that, though. I would say about 25% of the emails I get at Christmas time are about that. So there's a big fan base for that, and it's probably a whole different generation of fans than, you know, the Rudolph fans. So they have all these different little groups of fans, you know, Thundercats and The Hobbit and Return of the King, and even their live-action movies. Some of them, there's a big cult following for them.
How did they get involved with The Hobbit? Because, boy, The Hobbit turned out to be a big thing as far as movies, but they did like an animated thing.
Yeah, and their animated thing won a Peabody, and it was the first attempt to bring any of the work to the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when that came out, I wasn't a big fan of the books, but I had some friends that were, and they wanted to see that really bad, you know. And about 5 years ago, I helped with the documentary on that whole genre and the feature films, and I actually went to the Robert Redford, what's it called, Sun Film?
Yeah, the film festival he has.
Yeah,
what's
I
it
went
called?
to the film festival for the screening of this, and there's a lot of very strange people that are into that Tolkien thing, but it's interesting, though, what an impact it had on a lot of people, you know. And I think they even, from what I'm told, in the feature films, in the Peter Jackson films, they give a little tribute to some of the work that Rankin Bass did.
Well,
So,
I know for a fact, my dad played Santa Claus, and I was always out with him as Jingles the Elf. And Rankin Bass, because of their great specials, made all these Santa Clauses, people who played Santa Claus, they had to be up under history, because all of a sudden, you knew what really went on and how Santa Claus found Rudolph. And a lot of these old guys that played Santa Claus, they didn't see the show or whatever. And the kids would recite these shows verbatim, and Santa Claus is supposed to know, and he's like, what? So they gave a whole lot of us a lot of trouble.
Well, it was interesting the way they, like in Santa Claus Is Comin to Town, how Romeo Muller wrote the history of how everything happened, like how he got a beard and how he did this and that. And those shows have aired so many times, and they're out on DVD and everything else, that people take that for, you know, the true history of the character.
It is. It's become history. It's become like the Bible. Seriously,
Right.
Rudolph and Santa Claus Coming to Town has become like the Bible of Santaville, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
But definitely.
Well, Rick,
And they did that with the Easter Bunny, too,
Yeah,
I
and
know.
True, yes.
all the other characters.
Was there any, I guess you'd call them legends, childhood legends, that they considered doing but maybe didn't get a chance to come around, like maybe the Tooth Fairy or something like that?
No, I think they overdid the holidays and all of the characters they could, because they remade so many Christmas specials, you know, with Rudolph and Frosty, and they had sequels, and I think they did everything they wanted to do plus some. And it was mostly, you know, Arthur and Jules didn't care about the history so much, and that's why a lot of the puppets aren't around anymore, and it took a lot of scrounging up on my part to find all this stuff, because they were always interested in the next project. They didn't care about what they did, you know, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And it wasn't until just recently that they realized what an impact they had on pop culture.
Yes, definitely.
You know?
So you just hinted that you might have some of the original props or puppets?
Well, there aren't very many left, period. I had a few of them, and I've been around with several of them, you know, at events and things, but you know, with as many characters as they animate it and you see on the screen in all of their specials, you know, it's amazing how few survived. And most of them were in Japan, you know. So I don't know what happened after they would finish a production. I don't think they really cared about saving anything.
And if anybody has any, I don't think you'd mind if they sent them to you, right?
No, but I'm not too hopeful that that's ever going to happen, because there really isn't too many left. Arthur has some, and I'm sure, you know, at some point I'll probably obtain some of those, or, you know, I've had a couple. I actually sold one to the company that restored Santa and Rudolph, because they have a love of stop motion. They do stop motion for a living, and they could restore, you know, the puppets. I don't like to see them in private collections where no one else can see them.
Right.
I'd rather have them out
in a museum,
available to the public. Yeah.
Not on eBay, and definitely.
No.
Well,
so hopefully.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. You know, I don't know about this Mad Monster Party movie, but let's at least hope that they go with stop motion animation. I don't know what to say.
I don't know why they would do live motion, but at any rate, Rick, we wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show. I know it was kind of last minute that I contacted you, so thank you for coming on the show and sharing all of your history and knowledge of Rankin Bass with us. And we want you to have, of course, a very happy New Year, and, of course, a happy belated Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.